calculator problem. So this will be on the free response part of the exam, the blue part, because you're going to use a calculator. All right, how do we do this? We did one of these yesterday, actually, in the mini review, or 2 days ago, whenever that was.
You have to
We
L
did
on
one of
both
these.
sides.
So we're going to take the natural logarithm of both sides. And the beauty of that is, immediately then, it's gone, the e is gone. And all we have left is 3x minus 1 equals ln 5. Okay, so we're solving for x. Our job is to figure out x. So what are we going to do? We're going to add 1. And then we're going to divide by 3. Now we're going to carefully type that in on our calculator. We had some issues the other day. Let's see if we remember how to type this in. We're going to add 1 and divide by 3. So what do I need to, excuse me, what do I need to do to type this in? On my old calculator, I need ln 5 close parentheses plus 1. Hit equals, and then divided by 3. That's going to work on any calculator. Now, some of the newer ones have other features, but if you type that, it will work on every single calculator in the whole wide world, and that is the answer that you should end up with. Yep, that's the answer you should end up with. Okay? So make sure you're closing your parentheses after the 5, you're adding 1, hitting equals, and divided by 3. Why is everyone staring at me? Anybody else get that?
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah. Okay. All right, number 2. I wrote the formula up here. How do I know that that is the formula I'm going to use for problem number 23?
That's money and it's compounded.
It's compounded weekly. So what's my n? How many weeks in a year? 52, yes, 52. You guys, 52 weeks in a year, okay? So, here we go. I'm gonna start plugging stuff in. How much would you have if you invested 12,000? So where's the 12,000?
P.
P, that's how much I invested. Interest rate is 3.5, so in my formula, that's 0.035 divided by 52 to the 52. How many years? 10 years? This is one of the easy ones to type in, because don't we just type it in? I would first of all make this a 520. You don't have to, but it just makes it a little easier, I think. So 12,000 parentheses 1 plus 0.035 divided by 52 raised to the 520. $17,026.81. Oh wait, be careful. What do the directions say? To the nearest dollar. So since it's to the nearest dollar, I'll say 17,027. $24 is another formula problem. But which formula will I use for this one? I will use my PERT formula. Alright, so here we go. Find the growth constant for a string of bacteria. So 386 to start and 1025 to end. You guys, does that make sense? Everybody got that? Make sure the start goes in for P and the end goes in for A. I don't know R, but I know T is 3.8. All right, how do we solve it? no, oh no, no, no. Eventually, but not first. What has to happen first? First, we gotta divide by the 386. Alright, so everybody, make a note of that, if you tend to forget that. You've got to get rid of this extra number first. Then you can ln both sides, and that will go away. Remember, ln and e don't go away unless they're touching. So if you ln'd in this step, would it go away? No, you'd have a big old mess to deal with. So divide first, then ln. And of course over here is just going to be 3.8r. So we're just going to divide both sides by 3.8. And type it in. And I came up with 0.2570. Anybody else get that? You don't? And it says, what's the growth constant? That would be fine right there. That's it. That's the growth constant. Number 25. Oh my gosh. If you miss this one, it's just plain embarrassing. Because down the hall, in Mrs. Field's freshman class, they're doing the same thing on their exam. How do we write the equation of the line? What do we need to find first? Slope. And how do we find slope? Y minus y over x minus x. Always y over x, rise over run. If I do 11 minus 1, then I gotta do 3 minus -2. If I do 1 minus 11, then I gotta do -2 minus 3. It won't matter. Either way, the slope turns out to be 2. Now what? Pick a point. Doesn't matter which one. Let's pick 311. Then y minus 11 equals 2x minus 3. What's that called? That's called the point slope form. Typically, we multiply that out, distribute that out, and add 11. So in the answer blank, that would be the equation of my line. You're not missing that one, so if it bothers you, practice it. Practice it. Okay? What do I do with this? This is going to be a FOIL problem, right? So, okay, so when I FOIL this, what comes out of this? Let's see. 12 plus 6i minus 4i minus 2i squared. So first, outside, inside, last. Okay. Then what?
Make the 2i squared
So this I squared is -1, so that becomes a +2. These two can be added. So it looks like I have 14 plus 2i. Easy. Easy. 27, find the final cost of an item if there is a 20% discount and a 7% tax. Okay, remember doing these? All right, so how much did it cost to start with? $32.50. So I'm gonna start with $32.50, and I'm going to multiply it by two things, because I'm making two changes at the cash register. One of the changes is I'm subtracting 20%, and the other one is I'm adding 7%, right? That's what's happening at the cash register. This is a multiplication only problem. We are timesing. What do I times by to reflect a loss of 20%? 0.80, 0.8, 0.80, 80%. What do I multiply by to reflect a gain or an add-on of 7%? 1.07. So 32.5 times 0.8 times 1.07. It looks like that thing is gonna cost me $27.82. Right? All right, 28. What do you think? This is an inequality now, so we're gonna do it a little differently. Who remembers what do we have to have in every inequality problem? We're always gonna have a what? Number line. I'm gonna use a number line. Now, I need to figure out where to put the dots on the number line. So what do you think I'm gonna do with this problem? Factor it? So what are my factors? Minus 7 plus 1, Owen says, is he right? Yes. So the dots on the number line will be where? -1 and 7. They are open dots in this problem because there's no or equal to. And now I gotta figure out where to shade. So what do? Pick a number. So what number? It can't be these two. Any other number? What do you want to pick? 0. 0. I love 0. 0 is in here. If I put 0 into my problem, I get -7 times 1. Is -7 times 1 bigger than 0? No. So that means don't shade. Well, if I don't shade here, then what does that tell me? I do shade here and I do shade here because my shading goes back and forth. And then I need to write my answer, which is what? 2 parts. -infinity, -1 in union with 7 to infinity. All right. Number 29, oh boy. What is our strategy for problem number 29? There we go. Amount times percent plus amount times percent equals amount times percent. Right? So now I start filling stuff in. And always on these, you can fill in the percents. So we got 15%, we got 20%, and we want to end up with 16%. This is the end over here. How much? should be mixed with 18 gallons of 20. What goes here is the only blank up here. They're right there. What?
18 plus X.
18 plus X, that's exactly right. Yep, those two added together, these guys right here. You're mixing X gallons and 18 gallons, that's 18 plus X. Perfect. Now we solve it, and I want you to solve this because when we took a test over this, and we've done it twice, this has been on 2 different tests, some of you set it up correctly and then can't solve the equation. So you go ahead and solve it without my help and see if you can come up with the right answer. I got 72 gallons. Anybody else get that? Good. So some of you got this figured out? 0.15x plus 3.6 distributed over here. Move all the x's to the same side, move all the numbers to the other side, and divide. Okay? You need to be able to solve that. So practice, practice, practice. This has been on a couple of different tests too. One was very recent. Okay. So our job is to simplify this. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna mess around in here. So 3 and 4 don't do anything, so there they are, 3 and 4. Now what about my x's? See this? What are these gonna do? They're gonna go down. But there's already 5 down there, so that's gonna make 8. Now, nobody's moving with y's, but they are canceling. I have 7 y's on top of 2 y's, so that's gonna leave me with 5 y's on the top. And in the z's, everything's moving. So 5 are going to the top, and 2 are coming to the bottom. So what's that gonna leave me with? That's gonna leave me with 3 on the top. And now I can actually square everything now. So that's gonna be 9 and 16. And then I multiply my exponents, so y to the 10th, z to the 6th, over x to the 16th. When you sit down to study, write that problem down on another sheet of paper and make sure you can get that. There is one property question on the exam. Okay, one. It's a multiple choice question. And it's like, sort of like, name the property. Okay. So what property is shown in A? What?
Reflexive.
No. If it were reflexive, they would match exactly. These two things are equal to each other, but they're not exactly the same. What happened? You change the order, which means it is commutative. That That's a commutative of addition. Okay, one question, multiple choice. You can decide if you're gonna study properties or not. There's one. Multiple choice. Yes. All right, what's B? That's distributive. What's C? Additive identity. Additive identity. And what's D? Associative. There is a practice property sheet. I think it's in chapter P. If you want to practice some more properties, these properties, I'm sure you could get online and find about 1 billion resources to practice properties. Again, guaranteed, one question. All right, and then look at 32. Oh my gosh, here's our box. Okay, this right here is a carbon copy of the exam page. This is exactly what the exam page looks like, except I changed the numbers down here. You can see where I've been writing things out and changing them. So here we go. An open box, so we're gonna cut out the corners, make our box, just like we did yesterday or whatever day that was. All right, so number one, write the expression for the volume of the box, okay? So what's my equation? What am I gonna put in that first line there where it says V of X? Eleven minus 2x times 15 minus 2x times x. And then the next question says, okay, what's the domain? Okay, what's our domain? Did I see we practiced these the other day? Huh? What is it? 5.5, because it's always 0, 0's the minimum, and then it's half of the smallest dimension. Alright, and then it says graph it, okay, and because I'm not sitting there next to you, I want to know what you are looking at. So you're going to draw you're going to graph it on your calculator and then reproduce that on the paper. Draw you whatever, hopefully you see some kind of hill. And you're going to tell me what your window is. So these are free points because you already figured out x min and x max. What are x min and x max? 0 and 5.5. You already figured that out. What's y min? Always 0. And then y max will be different for everyone. So what do you want to start with? What guess do you want to start with? What? 600. 600? Now, it doesn't have to, I don't even know if 600 works, but it doesn't have to be 600. It just needs to be big enough to see that. I need to see that. So one big problem that happens is kids forget to type in the new equation. So you need to type in your new, you need to type in your new equation. You need to type in your new window. And let's see. Okay, it didn't quite look like that. With a window of 600, it looked more like this, but that's okay, because all I care about is that point right there. Right? Alright, so that's part C is done. Now, use your calculator to find the size of the notch. Find X. So when I find this point, I'm gonna have an X and a Y, and this is the one I want. It says find the notch. So, second calc, maximum. Everybody should be doing this. We've done hundreds of them, it seems like, and you just doing what I tell you or writing down what I say, not good enough. Gotta be able to do it yourself. So the X I came up with is 2.09 inches. That's what I came up with. Did anybody else get that? All right, let's go ahead and go to review 2. I know we haven't, you and I haven't done all of review 1. Kids, we're going to do as much of it as we can. We're going to get through hopefully all of it. Everything on review 1 is on review 2, so you're not missing a thing and get it all videoed. So we're going to review 2. Question number 1 says, look at this thing and tell me where all of the asymptotes are. What kinds of asymptotes do you look for? Vertical and horizontal. So when it says find all of them, it means find the vertical asymptotes and find the horizontal asymptote. Alright, so what do you remember about this? What do you remember about this? Anything? Can we factor it? Josh is my factoring guy. He loves to factor, he's good at it, and he's right. It factors. How does it factor, Josh? No, because 3 times 2 is a 5. 5 and 1. Josh would have caught his mistake because he always double checks. He double checks every time. So he figured it out. Some of you don't double check. You always should. So what does that tell me then? I factored, I should factor. Anytime I can factor, I should. And what does that tell me about asymptotes? This problem has 3 asymptotes. 2 verticals and 1 horizontal. Where are the verticals? X equals -5, X equals -1. Where do vertical asymptotes come from? The denominator. What about the horizontal? Where does it come from? The original equation. Exactly. I look, oh, wait a second, I have a problem. I'm supposed to box in my highest power, but what's the matter? They don't match. So what do I do when they don't match? I put a 0 in. I don't know what's going on, but if you really don't, you got a lot of studying to do if you really don't remember this stuff, guys. Questions are also easy, but you have to remember how to do them. So, what's my asymptote? I have no x squareds over 1x squared. What's 0 over 1? 0. So your horizontal asymptote is at 0. In a perfect situation, you would have something like 8x squared over 7x squared, right? And that asymptote would be at 8/7. But if they don't match, if they're not both squares or cubes or whatever, then you need to put zeros in so that you can do your blocks and compare them. Number two, we did one already. Number two was on the mini review, so everybody should remember how to do this. How do we find a remainder? We divide. And you are free to use synthetic division or long division, whichever you want. Synthetic's easier. What goes in the box if I'm using synthetic division? 2. And now I caution you about this, remember, as I'm copying down these numbers, what am I paying attention to? There's gotta be a 0 because the 4th power is missing. So I have to have a 0 in there. And here we go. So multiply, add, multiply, add, add, multiply, add. Okay, assuming I didn't make any mistakes. Is that right? So what's the remainder? 47. That's the question is, find the remainder. The remainder is 47. We did this one yesterday too. How do you find a y-intercept? You let x be 0. So no matter what, I'm gonna do it for both equations, no matter what the equation looks like, if I want the y-intercept, I'm gonna put a 0 in for my x. Okay, what's 0.37 to the 0? 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. So this is 80 over 1 plus 4 times 1. So what's my denominator? What's 1 plus 4 times 1? 5. And 80 over 5 is 16. So my y-intercept is 16. Over here, same exact thing. If you want a y-intercept, you let all of your x's be 0. So negative 1 squared is 1 times 3. It looks like my y-intercept is 3. All right, and then this will be the last one today. We're going to solve this equation, which means that ultimately we want to end up with x equals. Okay, so what are we going to do first with problem 4? Add 3 to the other side. Now, be careful, we have to use a strategy here. This is an absolute value problem. So what's my strategy in this absolute value problem?
4 pi?
Be careful, no. 2 equations. And the first equation is exactly what the original was. And then the second equation, I make the 9 negative. Nothing changes about the 2x minus 4. It's 2x minus 4 equals 9. 2x minus 4 equals negative 9. And then I solve these. Just like regular solving. And whatever I get, that is the answer to the question. Okay? Let's do one more. That one didn't take as long as I thought. So how do we solve an absolute value? We split it up into 2 after we've moved that 3 over. Then we can split it. Okay. This will be the last one. How do we do this? Again, it's a solve. Minus 1 all the way across. So minus 1, minus 1, minus 1. So I'm left with negative 5, less than 2x, because that's line, less than or equal to 14. all the way across, divide by 2. So I've got negative 5/2 less than x, less than or equal to 7. Now guys, that's gonna be a multiple choice, so you have to be careful, because maybe it will literally have that. But remember, that could also be written like this. Isn't that the same thing?
Yeah.
So you gotta make sure that you're looking at all of the answers, because you can have them in different forms. It can be written like this, or it can be written like that as an okay. Good job. We'll pick up there or somewhere tomorrow. And we will just continue.